It was a quiet Sunday evening, the kind that wrapped the house in a warm, familiar calm. Rain tapped softly against the windows, and the smell of freshly baked cookies drifted through the living room. The fireplace crackled gently, casting a golden glow across the room. Mom and Dad sat together on the long gray sofa, and their two kids, Aiden, 9 years old, and Mia, 7, snuggled beneath a fleece blanket decorated with cartoon stars. Mom glanced at Dad, exchanging a smile, the kind that belonged to people who had lived a lifetime of moments together. Dad cleared his throat theatrically. "All right," he announced. "We promised you both something tonight." Aiden rolled his eyes dramatically. "Yes, Dad, we know. You're going to tell us how you and Mom fell in love." Mia giggled, kicking her tiny feet excitedly. "Was it like the movies? Did Dad run after you in the rain?" Mom laughed. "Not quite, sweetheart. But it was dramatic in its own way." She tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, settling deeper into Dad's side as she began. "Our story didn't start perfect. It started messy, unexpected, and honestly, we didn't even like each other at the beginning." Both children gasped in exaggerated shock, and Dad playfully placed a hand over his heart. "It's true. Your mom thought I was arrogant, and I thought she was, well, impossible." Mom nudged him. "You mean stubborn?" "Exactly." Dad grinned. The children leaned closer, curious eyes wide. The atmosphere shifted, soft, nostalgic, warm. There was something magical about hearing a love story from the very people who had lived it. Mom continued. "We met long before either of you were born, back when we were young, stupid, and not very good at understanding our own emotions." Dad looked at the kids and lowered his voice dramatically. "Do you want to know the real, secret story? The story we've never told anyone?" Both kids nodded vigorously. "Good," he whispered, "because once you hear it, you'll understand just how close you came to never being born." Mia's jaw dropped. "What?" Mom chuckled. "Relax, baby. Everything turned out exactly how it was meant to. But back then, we had no idea what the future had planned for us." She sighed softly as her eyes drifted toward the window, remembering. "It all began on a day I will never forget. The day your dad ruined my favorite shoes." "What?" Aiden repeated, confused. Dad lifted his hands in surrender. "To be fair, your mom shouldn't have worn white shoes to a muddy parking lot." Mom elbowed him again. "Let me tell it." And so, the room fell quiet except for the soft ticking of the wall clock and the warm hum of the fireplace. The children leaned in, captivated. Their parents exchanged one last knowing smile before diving into the past, the beginning of everything. Mom began with a soft laugh, the kind that carried years of memory. "The first time I saw your dad, he was standing in the middle of a crowded university parking lot, arguing loudly with someone on the phone. I remember thinking, wow, who does he think he is?" Dad raised a hand. "In my defense, I was arguing with customer support about my bank card being frozen." Mom ignored him. "Anyway, I had just bought my favorite pair of shoes. White, beautiful, my pride and joy. I stepped out of the bus, confident and happy, until someone," Dad winced, "me," splashed a giant puddle of muddy water directly onto my feet. Aiden laughed so hard he nearly fell off the couch. Dad sighed. "It was an accident. I wasn't looking where I was stepping." Mom gave him a playful glare. "You didn't even notice. You were too busy yelling into your phone. I had to tap your shoulder to tell you what happened, and you turned around like I was interrupting the president." Dad covered his face. "Not my best moment." Mom softened. "No. But it was real, and honest, and the beginning of everything." The children listened, enthralled. Mom continued. "For weeks after that, we kept bumping into each other everywhere. Cafeteria, library, bus stop, always by accident. And every single time we argued about something." Dad chuckled. "She once yelled at me for breathing too loudly." Mom threw her hands up. "You were breathing loudly." The kids burst into giggles. "But," Mom said more softly, "looking back, we weren't really arguing. We were noticing each other." feeling something. Something neither of us was brave enough to admit. Dad nodded. We were both stubborn. Too stubborn. But every time we argued, it felt like the world narrowed down to just us. Mom added, even when I pretended to hate him, my heart felt something else entirely. The children leaned even closer. Mom smiled. And then came the day that changed everything, the day your dad finally apologized. Really apologized. And that was the first moment I saw the real him. Dad exhaled softly. That day, I realized I didn't want to argue anymore. I just wanted to talk to her. Mom looked down at her hands, smiling at the memory. That was the moment the walls started to fall. The truth is, love doesn't arrive loudly. It sneaks in quietly, like sunlight through curtains in the morning, warm and gentle, until one day you realize it has filled the whole room. And that's exactly what happened with us. After the day I apologized to your mom for ruining her shoes, something shifted. Not immediately, not magically, but slowly, one careful step at a time. For the first time in months, we talked without arguing. We walked together from class to the bus stop. We laughed at stupid things. She told me about her dreams, her fear of thunderstorms, her stubborn belief that people always deserved a second chance. Even me. One chilly afternoon, we found ourselves sitting in the university library, pretending to study but mostly stealing glances at each other. Outside, the sky was turning violet with the early winter dusk, and snowflakes drifted past the tall windows like soft pieces of heaven. Your mom's fingers brushed mine accidentally when she reached for her pen, and I felt every nerve in my body light up. She apologized quietly, but her cheeks flushed pink. That was the first moment I wondered, what if this was something more? But the real shift happened on a night we hadn't planned. It was late, far later than we usually stayed out. Your mom had been working on a project, and I had offered to walk her home because the buses had stopped running and the streets were frighteningly quiet. She tried to argue, of course. I can walk alone, she insisted. No, I said. It's late, and cold, and dark, and you look like you'll fall asleep standing up. She pretended to be annoyed, but I could see the faint smile tugging at the corner of her lips. The walk took us through dimly lit roads, past shuttered cafes and glowing street lamps that flickered in the wind. The cold air bit at our cheeks, but somehow, being next to her felt warm. Safe, right? We talked about everything, our childhoods, our fears, our ridiculous university routines. She told me she hated when people chewed loudly. I told her I hated when people left the lights on. She laughed. I loved her laugh even then. At one point, snow began to fall again. Soft, delicate flakes that landed on her hair and shoulders. She looked up, letting the snow kiss her eyelashes, and in that moment, she looked like magic. I stopped walking without realizing it. She turned to me. What? I shook my head softly. Nothing. Just stay like that. Her breath caught. She knew. I knew she knew. For a moment, the world fell completely silent. But love is stubborn too, and neither of us was brave enough to say the words that hovered on our tongues. So we walked on. When we reached her street, a narrow row of old brick houses with dim yellow lamps glowing like sleepy eyes, she stopped. Thank you for walking with me, she said, suddenly shy. Thank you for letting me, I replied. She hesitated, opening her mouth as if she wanted to say something. But instead, she rose on her toes and kissed my cheek, soft, quick, and warm enough to melt the winter around us. My entire world stopped. She pulled away immediately, embarrassed. I didn't mean, I know, I whispered, but I didn't know. Not really. All I knew was that something inside me had changed forever. Later that night, lying awake in my cold little room, I realized the truth with terrifying clarity. I was falling for her. Falling fast. Falling hard. And even scarier, I had no idea if she felt the same. But the next morning, she showed me. She found me in the cafeteria, dropped her tray next to mine, sat down and simply said, I liked walking with you. That was all. But it was everything. In that tiny sentence was a world of unspoken feelings. A quiet confession. A fragile hope. From that day onward, we were no longer two people arguing, pretending, avoiding. We were slowly, cautiously becoming something else, something deeper, something that terrified us both. We studied together. We walked home together. We laughed at jokes that weren't funny to anyone else. We didn't call it love, but it was. Not loud, not dramatic, not yet, but real, beautiful, growing. And one day we knew, inevitably, it would change everything. Love stories always have a turning point, a moment when everything fragile is tested. For us, it came on a night none of us expected. It was storming. One of those fierce, violent UK rainstorms where the sky cracks open with thunder and the streets flood with icy water. Your mom hated storms. They scared her more than anything. But that night, she had stayed late for a project, and I couldn't reach her. Her phone dead, the university nearly empty. I felt something deep inside me panic. I ran. I didn't think. I didn't breathe. I just ran through the storm, soaked to my skin, my heart pounding like it was trying to escape my chest. When I reached the campus, the halls were dark, silent, empty, except for one hallway, where a dim emergency light flickered like a dying ember. And there she was, sitting alone on the floor, knees hugged to her chest, tears mixing with the rain soaking her hair. I had never seen her look so small, so fragile, so afraid. The moment I saw her, everything inside me broke. I dropped to my knees in front of her. Hey, I'm here. I'm here. She looked up, eyes wide and filled with tears of relief. And then she threw herself into my arms, so suddenly, so desperately, that we both nearly toppled over. I thought no one would come, she whispered, shaking. I will always come, I said. Always. She cried into my chest, her fingers gripping my soaked shirt like she was afraid I'd disappear. Thunder boomed above us. She flinched hard. I held her tighter. We sat there for a long time, two shivering bodies in a cold, empty hallway, while my heart made the clearest decision of my life. I can't lose her. I can't live without her. I love her. Not halfway. Not maybe. Not someday. Completely. When the storm softened, I helped her stand. She clutched my hand the entire walk home, as if letting go might make the sky crack open again. When we reached her door, her eyes were swollen from crying, hair messy from rain, clothes dripping. But to me, she had never looked more beautiful. She touched my face gently. Why did you come for me? Because I love you? I whispered before I could stop myself. The words were out, shaking real raw. She froze. Rain dripped from her eyelashes as her lips parted in shock. You love me? She whispered. I nodded. She took a shaky breath. I was so scared tonight, but when you showed up, everything felt okay. She swallowed hard. And if that's not love, I don't know what is. Then she stepped forward and kissed me. Not a shy kiss, not a quick, nervous one.
Orealkish.
A kiss made of fear and relief and truth. A kiss that sealed every unspoken word. And that night, the storm ended. Not outside, inside us. Our love grew after that night. Stronger, deeper, more certain with every passing day. We studied together, walked everywhere together, cooked terrible meals together, laughed until our stomachs hurt, dreamed together. We built something quietly powerful. And one evening, years later, on a hill overlooking the city lights, your dad got down on one knee. Your mom covered her mouth, tears filling her eyes. I said, I loved you before I knew what love was. I will love you long after everything else fades. Will you build a life with me? She didn't speak. She threw her arms around me and whispered, yes, 1,000 times yes. And that moment is when our family truly began. We dreamed of a warm home. We dreamed of laughter echoing down hallways. We dreamed of tiny footsteps, tiny hands, tiny voices calling us mom and dad. And one day, those dreams became you, Aiden, Mia, our greatest gifts. That's why tonight, as we sit here telling you this story, we want you to know something. You are not just part of our life. You are the reason our love grew even stronger. You are the proof of every promise we ever made. And you are the most beautiful part of our story. Mom kissed both your foreheads. Dad wrapped his arms around all of you. And with tears in her eyes, Mom whispered, "One day, you'll have your own love story. But this is how ours began."